Today, we're diving into a philosophy that gives us a pretty practical guide to life's biggest questions. Love, death, and what it actually means to be happy. And it all kicks off with this one kind of wild idea.
I know, it sounds like a total paradox, right? But that question, that's the whole heart of this explainer. It's a direct challenge to the one thing pretty much all of us spend our entire lives chasing.
The philosopher André Comte-Sponville basically argues that the real source of our unhappiness isn't life itself. Nope, it's the impossible dreams we keep projecting onto it. By chasing these illusions, he says, we're just setting ourselves up for one disappointment after another.
Now, when you hear philosophy, you might think of dusty old books or stuffy academic debates. But for Comte-Sponville, it's nothing like that. He sees it as a practical tool that anyone can use. The goal is simple, but wow, is it profound, to close that gap between what you believe and how you actually live your life.
And listen, this wasn't just some intellectual game for him. He talks about his own childhood as being really unhappy, just surrounded by this inescapable sadness. He felt he had a sad sensibility, but he discovered he could choose to cultivate a joyful thought. So philosophy became his personal way out of the darkness, a path toward clarity and light.
So this brings up a really fascinating paradox. On one hand, you have these absolute geniuses, thinkers like Kant and Freud, who pretty much concluded that real happiness is impossible. But then you ask people on the street, and in France, a whopping 80% say, yeah, I'm happy. So who's right, the philosophers or the people?
Well, Comte-Sponville's answer is, they aren't even talking about the same thing. The great thinkers were right that these kinds of happiness are impossible. Félicité, this idea of constant, non-stop, permanent joy, it just doesn't exist. And neither does plenitude, the fantasy that you could ever satisfy every single one of your desires. It's like the Rolling Stones said, right? I can't get no satisfaction.
So this all leads to a much more down-to-earth, realistic definition. Happiness isn't the constant presence of joy. It's the simple absence of misery. It's any stretch of time where joy is still possible, even if you're not feeling it in that exact second. To put it simply, sometimes being happy is just being glad that you're not unhappy.
Okay, so if our whole idea of happiness has been kind of an illusion, what does that say about maybe the biggest illusion of them all, romantic love?
The ancient Greeks actually gave us a great roadmap for this. They had different words for different kinds of love. When it comes to our relationships, the two big ones are eros, that fiery, passionate love, and philia, which is more about friendship and shared joy. And then there's a third, agape, which is more of a universal, charitable love for all of humanity.
This framework basically charts the journey of a long-term relationship. Most of them start with eros, right? That intense love that's based on lack, on wanting someone you don't have yet. It's a huge thrill, but it's just not sustainable. Comte-Sponville argues that for a couple to make it, they have to evolve toward philia, a love that's based on the simple joy of the other person just being there. It's that shift from pure passion to a deep friendship.
And that's really the heart of it for relationships. True, lasting love isn't about finding some perfect, mythical person. It's about letting go of the whole Prince Charming or ideal woman fairy tales and learning to love the real, flawed, actual human being who's sharing your life.
I love this quote from the French humorist Alphonse Allais. It's funny, yeah, but it's also incredibly profound. And it kind of forces us to look at the toughest topic of all, the fact that, well, none of us are getting out of here alive.
Comte-Sponville says, life isn't a drama, where we're all in suspense about how it's going to end. No, it's a tragedy. We already know the ending. There are no survivors. So when you're faced with that absolute certainty, what's the right way to live? How do you find any joy in a story when you know it ends in failure?
His answer is this concept he calls gay despair. And no, it has nothing to do with being depressed. It's the exact opposite. It is the joyful acceptance of our tragic situation. The idea is that looking death right in the eye doesn't have to paralyze us. It can actually free us. Knowing our time is limited becomes the very reason to love the life we have as it is, even more intensely.
Deep down, this whole philosophy is about being authentic. The idea is that even a painful truth is way better than a comforting lie, because in the end, illusions always always lead to disappointment.
And for Comte-Sponville, this is so personal. He watched his own mother live a life trapped by these false hopes. He said that whenever she tried to be happy, it just sounded false. The only thing that felt real about her was her misery. And eventually, the gap between her dreams and her reality became so huge that she took her own life. He came to believe it was her illusions that killed her.
And that leads to this incredible twist on a common saying. You know how we're always told to go to the end of your dreams? Well, he says that misses the whole point. The only way to truly get to the end of a dream is to wake up from it. Wake up into the real world, into real action, and into a real life that you can love for what it is, not what you wish it was.
And so, this whole philosophy really just leaves you with one question. It's a challenge, really, to look at your own life, your own hopes, your own illusions. What dream, what impossible expectation might be the very thing holding you back from truly living? It's a tough question, for sure, but it might just be the most important one you can ask yourself.